was a very difficult time for every one of the controllers because there's only one thought in mind: did I give the crew everything I needed to, and was my data right? Because from now on, crews are on their own, no give-backs. And we watch all the clocks in the well counting down to zero, and when I finally hit zero, blackout should be over, and I say, okay, Joe, give him a call. Kerwin calls Odyssey, Houston, standing by. There's no response from the crew. All you hear is static. And we call again and again. It's now 1 minute, and literally every controller in that control room is standing up, staring at those clocks, wondering what the hell went wrong. But in our business, we'll never surrender. We keep calling, keep working. 1 minute and 27 seconds after we should have heard, get a ray hope. Downrange aircraft calls out, Orion 4 has acquisition of signal. And the aircraft carrier reports radar contact. Then they report the sonic boom. And then in mission control, we see the beautiful picture of the spacecraft under these 3 red and white parachutes. And the emotional release at that instant is so intense that literally everyone is standing crying. And you're frankly embarrassed by your loss of composure. You pull yourself together. Spacecraft hits the water, remains upright. Iwo Jima circles, deploys more helicopters. The parajumpers go in the water to assist this crew out. And this crew that had been living in a meat locker, temperatures ranged between 37 and about 41 degrees for the best part of 4 days, extremely humid, and all they had were the light and cotton coveralls and 3 to 4 pairs of underwear they all put on. But now these guys are in the warm air of the South Pacific, and they are home, and they are alive. Now, in mission control, excuse me. In mission control, our job is not over until we hand over responsibility for the crew to the Recovery Task Force commander. And as soon as the crew's feet hit the carrier deck, we start that handover process. And when it is complete, and only when it's complete, do we celebrate. By now, we have pre-positioned about 700 of the best cigars we can find from the west coast of the United States all the way to the east coast of the United States. And several occasions where we didn't have enough to go around, we instruct the people to cut them in half. And then in national TV, we count down to light up those cigars, and that is probably the sweetest smoke that I think any of us have ever had. Second phase in celebration is back out of a condition we call battle short. During all critical phases at that time, we used to actually physically block the power breakers coming into the building and lock all doors. Lock the doors of the main control room. Now we back out of the battle short condition, and the real heroes of 13 come in and join us, which are the folks in the back room, because they're the ones that gave us the answers we needed when we needed them. All we did in the main control room is count cadence and assemble the pieces into the proper sequence. Third phase in celebration is a tradition we started when we set our first space record as Americans. We pass out an American flag to every controller. And on the staff of that flag, you write the mission, you write your name, you write the landing time, the job you were doing in mission control. And we continued this tradition all the way through the early shuttle program. It's one of our most treasured possessions. President Nixon came down and visited. We got some nice attaboys in Houston. Then he went out 2 days later to greet the crew out in Hawaii and give them the well-deserved recognition for their absolutely superb performance during the course of the mission. A lot of times we're asked, and I think both Lovell, myself, and Hayes all agree, what was the real key to this mission was the absolute trust that existed within this team. It wasn't a group of individuals, it was one team all the way. We always operated with 4 flight directors, and we did this to balance the training load because training's pretty intense and it's very lengthy for the missions. Shifts run between 12 and 14 hours most of the time. And that way we could pull a team out of rotation at midpoint of the mission. Probably the most important reason, though, is one team was always designated as a crisis management team before liftoff. And that happened to be my responsibility as lead team. When the time came, and we had the problem, it was up to me to get my team out of the shift rotation and basically come up with the answers and return to console only when we had the answers. Glenn Lunny was the youngest of the flight directors. He was 32 years old at the time of Apollo 13. Case, team color black, came to us from Case Institute in Cleveland, was the first person I ever worked with who knew anything about a computer. So he was the go-to guy for the answers we needed out of the machines. The remaining 3 flight directors, I was the oldest at 37. We had Milt Woodler and Jerry Griffin. Milt with the maroon, Jerry Griffin with the gold. The remaining 3 of us were all fighter pilots. We flew the late subsonic and early supersonic aircrafts in the 50s. I believe it was this background in aviation at that time that really helped us keep our poise during the mission. Our nation abandoned the moon in December 1972. Gene Cernan was the last human ever to walk on the surface of the moon. And for us, this was a marvelous time to live because we believed in this dream that we were given by John F. Kennedy. And we considered ourselves privileged and proud to be part of the brotherhood that formed in the early years of space. And we thanked our country that they gave us a chance to participate in this great adventure. So this is the story of Mission Control, story of Apollo 13, story of a team of young Americans united through leadership, trust, values, and a clear objective. And a team that truly believes that in our line of work, failure will never be an option. Thank you.